This week on Quality Digest Live, we chat with author Chip Bell about value unique service.
That's right. Plus, are employee freebies bad for quality? We'll find out when we come back.
This episode of Quality Digest Live is brought to you by Mitutoyo America. Whatever your metrology challenges, Mitutoyo supports you from start to finish.
And welcome back to Quality Digest Live for March 17th, 2017. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Dirk Ducharme, Editor-in-Chief of Quality Digest.
And I'm Quality Digest Publisher Mike Richmond. That's right, March 17th, Dirk. Happy St. Patty's Day.
There you go, buddy. Oh,
oh
well.
You're not wearing green. You're going to get a pinch from a lot of people if you don't wear green, other than your socks.
Hickey on my arm now.
You have to wash your socks more. They won't be green.
I'm sorry, man.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, usually, as long-term fans of the show know, we start off with a news item or two when we kick off our show. But today we have a pair of really great guests and some other interesting features to get to. So we're going to dispense with the news and jump right into our first interview. Customer service. It's one of the maybe least glamorous tasks in the realm of operational excellence, but in many ways, it's the most important. I mean, think about it. Those that are on the front lines of your organization, those people that are answering the phones, addressing questions, guiding your customers through your procedures and processes, in many ways, they're your most important quality assets. If those employees really know their stuff and exude a great infectious attitude, your customers are going to have a positive sense of the kind of company that you have. That means that not only will they come back, but they're going to tell their friends about you too. Great customer service is the backbone of quality at any customer-facing organization. I think we all know that.
Sure.
And our first guest would, I think, agree with that because he's built his reputation as industry's foremost cheerleader for customer service that's not just good, but great, innovative, fun, and something more than just value added, value unique. I like that term, value unique, and that's really the core of what he's talking about here. I can say that Chip Bell has written the book about this topic, but that would actually be a lie because he's written 21 of them. His latest, and I have it right here, is called Kaleidoscope, Delivering Innovative Service That Sparkles, and it's out now, and he's with us today to tell us all about it. Chip Bell, welcome to Quality Digest Live.
Oh, thank you so much, Dirk and Mike. It's always fun to be with you on Quality Digest Live. Thanks for this opportunity.
That's an interesting studio that you're in right now.
That's right.
I'm in the front seat of my car. This is a first for me on Skype, at least.
It's a mobile studio, as they say.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well,
have show, will travel.
Well, Chip, let's get to it because I think this is a great topic and I wanted to kind of ask you about it from your experience. What would you say is the number one thing that all really great customer service organizations have in common?
Well, I think first of all, they're all in the memory making business as opposed to the object making business. And what that means is the kind of experiences they create are absolutely critical. The customer doesn't help you make the products, but they don't show up in your factory and help you. But when it comes to service, they are sort of co-creating that experience with you. And so therefore that relationship and their involvement and participation becomes absolutely critical and a key tenet to how we think of great quality. In the end, they judge it based on how they're treated, not just the physical object that they may buy, like a product.
So you're saying that really that the experience, that the exchange has as much, or if not more, value than actually the thing they get for it, the product or the service, right?
Absolutely. A great product might bring you in, but a great experience is what brings the customer back.
Right.
At the end of the day, that's what moves the needle in terms of most organization is whether or not they come back, whether they buy more, whether they trust you more. And as you implied in your opening, whether they become your advocate and talk to others about you, encouraging them, therefore becoming kind of an extension of the organization's sales and marketing.
Right, that's something we talked about, and I know you've talked about it, I think, as well, that the NPS, the Net Promoter Score. is really something that we've talked about a lot. Is how much they talk about how good you are, and you know how much they talk about how bad you are. They talk about how bad you are. That's even more damaging maybe than the value of talking about how good you are, right?
Absolutely. And what's changed a lot is the fact that the expectations of the customer have gone up such that now they don't talk particularly about good service. It's service that's great, it's unique, it's unusual. And what I like to focus on is it's the kind of experience that creates the story they're eager to share with somebody.
And, you know, Chip, you know, obviously, the world today is much different than it was 30 years ago. I mean, we're all connected, you know, social media, internet connected world that we live in now. So what are the risks of poor service quality in kind of today's environment, and how quickly can they be manifest?
Well, overnight, or maybe even faster, because today, as we know, the word of mouth, as I like to call it, has about 5 times the reach and impact of word of mouth. And so it's not what we say to our neighbor across the backyard fence. Now, because of social media, my reach is extended much more powerfully, and because it's real time and I can share with thousands of people. Jeff Bezos has a wonderful line. He said, in the physical world, an unhappy customer might tell 6 people, but in the cyber world, they probably will tell 6,000. And so consequently, the number of people they influence goes up exponentially, and the speed with which that influence happens is much more quickly than it's ever been before. So again, the social media has changed the calculus on organizations' reputation, both good and bad.
Word of mouse.
Word of mouse.
Like that.
Not mouse, not M-O-U-S-E.
No, word of mouse.
Mouth. Word of
Mouth. Mouse. That's what he was saying. Word of mouse.
See, I thought he said word of mouth. It could be either way, I guess, right?
I use touchpad, so it's word of touchpad.
Well, but I mean, Chip, that's an interesting point you make, though, because I mean, you do have these thousands of people that reach out to others online if they have a bad review or a good review of something. But you know, what in your opinion, what's the value of kind of an anonymous, you know, pro or con of somebody you don't know? You read something online of somebody you don't know, versus an actual, the over the fence one, the one that you said where you actually do know somebody, a brother or a friend or your mom or whatever, who had an experience, and they'll tell you about it. There's a lot more value to that face-to-face one, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely, because we trust the person that we're talking to face-to-face, or we get an email from them or a tweet from them, and we know them. But still, those that are anonymous, and that's the challenge of the internet today, is you can create havoc and remain anonymous. And so, therefore, it's created a freedom that people have, whereas if they were face-to-face, they might not be so blistering in their review. And so, again, it's ramped up the impact of that of the whole internet and what it's done to customers. The anonymity has made it even more powerful, while the face-to-face review obviously is much more credible. We still read them. We still pay attention to those that we don't even know. And when we're like going looking for a hotel and you go online and, you know, you see all the reviews, you know, you don't know those folks necessarily. But we do read them in terms of whether we make a decision to stay at a particular property or not. So they do have impact.
Chip, I want to change this a little bit because I think this is an important question and I wanted your opinion on it. You know, our industry, it's filled with a lot of you know, methodologies, buzzwords, theories. It can get a little bit deep in the weeds sometimes. And sometimes the implementation of that stuff can be kind of complicated, but do you think that executives who are interested in really improving the organization's quality, sometimes maybe they overlook the simple stuff like really good customer service?
I do. And again, part of the challenge is for many executives who live in a very financially driven world, how we prove in a sort of cause and effect way becomes much more challenging. If I spend $1 million on great customer service, can you prove to me unequivocally that I'll get $1 million return plus? And that is very difficult to prove. We do know, however, there is a very strong correlation between the bottom line and the kind of reputation you have for the customer and the experience they have. And so the difficulty is in proving And also, we all know that making a cultural change to create an environment where people are excited about delivering great service when they're on the front line takes a while. You can't build a culture in a drive-by effort. It takes a long-term effort, and a lot of times senior executives are impatient and are more interested in a quarter-to-quarter kind of benchmark, and therefore lack the staying power to see at the 2 to 3 to 4 years it might take to really move the needle with a great culture that creates a great customer experience. So it makes it much more challenging in that sense.
Well, Chip Bell, quick interview. Thank you for joining us this morning on Quality Digest Live from a car in the great state of Georgia. I want to encourage everyone out there again. Hey, Kaleidoscope, really great book. I've read it. I did a review on it. Really, really fun read. Great book. A lot of good information. So check that one out. Chip Bell, thanks for being with us this morning.
My pleasure. Always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks,
we'll
Chip.
see you down the line.
Take care.
And you know, our next story, interestingly enough, actually ties right into
we didn't plan it that way.
right into what Chip was talking about, and it's how to deliver good customer service, and it comes at it from kind of an interesting angle.
Yeah.
So maybe some of you have worked in a consumer-oriented business. Maybe you've worked in retail, counter sales, that sort of stuff. Maybe consumer product manufacturing, consumer customer service, and so forth. Very often, one of the perks of those jobs for working for a consumer company is freebies, free products, free services, maybe free cable or free cellular, right? That's offered by that company. Or maybe even being moved to the front of the line for service issues because you are a company employee. Maybe you get first shot at a new product, or if you have a problem with your product or service, you have an insider that you can call and get you up and running more quickly. And that sounds great, right? I mean, who doesn't like freebies, especially as an employee? A lot of times those are some of the perks that companies hand out. Well, it's great for you, the consumer. But maybe there's a downside to this. Maybe there's a downside to companies giving employees freebies or preferential service. In his article, Why Employee Freebies Are Bad for Quality, author Arun Hariharan makes the case that these freebies actually mask problems from the company. I mean, how do you know what your customers are experiencing if you don't experience that product or service in the same way that the customer experiences? There is nothing quite like an employee going through the same customer service experience that their customers do.
We talk about it all the time, the customer journey, right?
It's the customer journey. I mean, just think of all the conversations that you have had with your cable TV or your wireless vendor. Wouldn't it be nice if the customer service reps had the experience of spending 3 or 4 or 5 minutes working their way through the recordings and the crazy long phone trees just to arrive at the wrong department?
Right.
We've all done that. It just drives you insane. Wouldn't it be nice if employees had to experience billing mistakes or try to decipher strange charges on their bill? If companies did that, I think you would see customer experience improve across the board. And this is exactly what Hariharan's talking about in his article. And he gives an example of a wireless company that he works with, that had a no freebies policy. At that company, many employees were actual customers who paid for the company's products. When they had a problem, they contacted customer support just like any other customer. These companies provided neither freebies nor shortcuts to employees. Naturally, this enabled the employees to relate better to issues raised by their customers. And further, the no freebies policy enabled employees to improve the company's processes whenever they themselves encountered a problem, leading to continuous improvement month after month and year after year. See, all of that disappears when employee freebies get employee freebies and special treatment. Haven't you noticed, quipped Hariharan, how you can understand a problem better and often also come up with a better solution when you are personally affected by the problem? Now, his suggestion is that instead of freebies, you increase your employees' wages a bit and let them purchase the product or service that you provide. Let them experience your product from the customer's perspective. Like you said, let them take the customer journey. And it's really an interesting thought. It's kind of like Well, when you think about it that way, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? I
Yeah.
mean, let the employees have that same experience, then they can feed that back into your processes.
Well, because it's exactly what he said. I mean, how many times have you or I or anybody of us out there have gone through a really frustrating customer service experience and said, you know what they need to do is X.
Right.
And if I was in charge of that company, I would do this.
Right.
Well, if you are in the company, you have a better shot at leveraging that knowledge to make some actual changes.
Yeah.
But you never know that if you don't go through the process of getting a mistake on your bill or having to call somebody in customer call center and figure out how they're handling these issues.
Yeah.
You're never going to know if you don't know. You know? So I mean,
exactly. I know.
And Arun knows that too, and I think that's really important to keep that perspective. And there's a lot of value there. And the idea of giving them a little extra money to do that is brilliant.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. You're not taking away the benefit. You're just changing it into a benefit that actually can give you some information.
There you go. Or even you could let's say you're a wireless company. You could say, okay, look, show us proof that you're using our service,
Right.
and we will put $50 into your paycheck extra, just to offset it a little
Sure.
bit. But, so in other words, they're still getting that spiff, right? But they're doing it through the back end. They're just saying, okay, we'll give you a little something, but you have to prove, first of all, that you're using our products. That gets more people using their product within the company.
And as far as the billing department knows, they're just another customer. They're just another person,
That's
and
right.
they get the same exact experience their customers will.
Yep.
Really great idea. Really great idea.
All right. Okay. Well, if you work for one of the automotive manufacturers or are a supplier to an automotive manufacturer, one of the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3s, whatever, then you are already familiar with ISO TS 16949, which is the industry-specific standard based on ISO 9001. Both of these standards have recently received significant updates, ISO 9001-2008 being replaced by ISO 9001-2015, and ISO TS evolving into IATF 16949. This is significant. For IATF 16949, that biggest change has been that it has been decoupled from ISO 9001 in both title and structure. The International Automotive Task Force, or the IATF, not the International Organization for Standardization, or ISO, now controls the 16949 standard, the IATF 16949, and is responsible for future updates to its specifications and audit requirements. Thus, although IATF 16949 requires compliance to ISO 9001-2015,
That's key. That's a key point.
it exists as a completely separate document subject to its own review and update process. Very interesting. Now, here to tell us a little bit more about why this came about, as well as some key dates to keep in mind for the 16949 transition, is Ismael Belmarez, Accreditation Manager for DNV GL Business Assurance, North America. Hello, Ismael.
Hello, Derek. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. How are you? I think everybody calls you Ish. Is that right?
Yes, I go by Ish.
Okay, Ish.
Good.
All right. So tell us what was the reason? Why was ISO TS 16949 decoupled from ISO 9001 to become the IATF 16949?
Well, there were several reasons, but one of the main reasons was the flexibility that it allows by being an independent standard. Right now, the way it was, they had to follow the ISO protocols anytime they wanted to make changes and things like that. So this allows them more flexibility to react to market changes. Also, if things came along and they had to revise a standard, they had to go through those ISO protocols, and they're pretty strict. So now it's basically in the hands of the OEMs and IATF itself. And they're able now, as you mentioned, and good that you mentioned, one of the big things is that it's still totally dependent on ISO 9000. It fully complies to it, and actually the IATF, if you actually look at the standard itself, no longer includes the ISO 9000 text. However, in the verbiage, it says you shall comply with all the requirements of ISO 9000. So for a company getting certified, they need to have both the ISO 9000 standard and the IATF 16949.
And Ismael, when they say comply with the ISO 9001 standard, they specify that it has to be the latest version of the standard, or do they care?
It's the latest version.
Okay.
So when you go to IATF or you upgrade from TS 6949 to IATF 6949, they expect you to be compliant at that same time to ISO 9000 2015 version.
Got it.
So Ish, give us a little high-level perspective here. What's the major differences, departures, if you will, of IATF 16949 versus the old ISO TS 16949?
Well, the main difference you're going to see is, of course, the high-level structure. It's going to follow the same formatting as ISO 9001, or the main changes from the 2008 to the 2015. On top of that, of course, the IATF or the automotive requirements, specific requirements, were also updated, and you can see some of the the recent things that have occurred in the automotive industry, like product traceability, with all the recalls that have occurred, have been beefed up, so to speak. So there's some additional requirements in the traceability part. You also see a lot of safety related issues, or functional safety is also now incorporated into the standard. Another part is integrated software. As technology has evolved, a lot of the products themselves now have, or a lot of the components in a car have integrated software. So there is some controls that have been incorporated into the standard for that integrated software, and also the updates. How are they going to occur if they need to occur? So that's also in there. And then there's also a little bit of clarification on the management and development requirements of subcontractors. In the past, it just said you shall comply with it. You shall use the TS requirements as a basis for developing of subcontractors, but it also said that at least they shall comply to ISO 9000. Now it requires more of the automotive requirements of the TS or the IATF requirements.
And Ish, I mean, one of the big changes for ISO 9001 2015 was that they took away any language that prescribed how you documented anything. I mean, basically, it's up to the user to define how they want to document or show auditors what they're doing to meet any of the requirements of the standard, which was kind of a big deal. How does that work with 16949? Is it still kind of whatever you want to show us, or is it a little bit more prescriptive?
IATF, or the predecessor, the TS, was very prescriptive to begin with. That has not really been taken away. So where you do have some flexibility with ISO 9000, IATF is still very prescriptive, is on what tools shall be used, what documentation is required, or you have to show that whatever system you have is equivalent to those requirements. So IATF, like a lot of scheme-specific requirements, are still very prescriptive.
And what are some of the key dates that people need to be aware of in this transition from ISO TS 16949 to IATF 16949?
Okay, there are two key dates. Basically, there's October 1, 2017, so later on this year. Any audit after that date must be to the new IATF standard. There's no wiggle room there, basically. So any audit after October 1 will be to the new standard. The audit time also increases because any transition audit has to be recertification time allocated to it to make the conversion. Clients will receive a brand new certificate at that point, a new 3-year certificate. The other date to keep in mind is September 14, 2018. All transitions must have occurred by that date. If not, because of all the old ISO TS 6949 certificates will expire on that date.
And Ish, before we get to the end of the segment, we want to ask you, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the IATF database of registered companies. This is an important point. Is everyone going to have access to that? I mean, purchasing people, for instance, who need to verify that a company is registered to the standard?
Okay, the IATF database has been there for a little while. It's all the CBs are required. All the certification bodies have to input our information into that. So it has client names, the date of the audit, who the auditors were, the nonconformances, whether they were major or minor. Also, in addition to that, also what's referred to as the supplier code. So if you're supplying to Ford, Chrysler, GM, Peugeot, Renault, they all have a supplier code associated with them. Those supplier codes are put into the database as well. The people that have the only organizations that have access to it at this point in time are the OEMs. So Ford, Chrysler, the OEMs, etc., have access to that database. So they're able to see. They have talked, and maybe in the future that they'll be, go down or allow the tier 1s and tier 2s to have access to it. But at this point in time, it's only the OEM. So if you supply directly to Ford, Chrysler, Peugeot, Renault, then they have direct access. The supplier codes also make a difference in that the system itself allows for automatic notifications if the client is suspended or their certificate has expired. Say you're a supplier to Ford, if your certificate expires or you're suspended, Ford automatically gets notification based on that supplier code. But right now, if you're asking about who has access to that, it is the OEMs.
All right, Ish. Well, thanks for being with us here with us. There is a webinar coming up on this topic that Ish will be the subject matter expert on. I'll be hosting, and that webinar is the IATF 16949 2016 Transition Experiences. That's next Tuesday at March 21st at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. Note that time. This is earlier than we typically do our webinars, so it's 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. Ish will be joined by Wendy Parr, owner of Parr Consulting. So be sure to sign up for the webinar. The link is below the player page. Ish, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay. So
we'll see you on Tuesday.
See you on Tuesday.
Thanks, Ish.
Yep.
Yeah, everyone sign up for that. If you're in the automotive space, definitely sign up for that one. It's going to be a very interesting webinar. A lot of good information. You could tell from that little segment there. Ish
is real.
has a lot of knowledge. So
good guy.
Check the one out. All right. Well, we have a few minutes before the end of the show, so we want to get back to doing our off-script segment. This is where Dirk or I alternate. We kind of don't prepare this in advance. So
Fortunately, there's only 3 minutes.
So we don't know. Well, you can go as long as you want, Dirk. Feel free. Actually, this one is, I think you can answer fairly succinctly. I'm planning my next op-ed. And I have a topic that I legitimately am curious about, and well, I'm legitimately curious about all my topics, but I mean, this one I'm curious about because I don't know the answers to it. So I said, well, let me throw it at you. I mean, we talk all the time about automation. We talk about automation within the framework of the quality space, the work that you all do out there, but mostly we talk about it within the framework of near the shop floor, the mechanics of doing quality, the acquiring data, doing the work that needs to be done to make sure that work is done properly. I want to think about automation though at the level of management, at the level of quality, the soft skills of quality. How do people who are quality managers, who are doing things like making sure that their IATF 16949 registration is in place and making sure that the methodologies, the lean methodologies they're doing, or Six Sigma, or whatever it is, are being done? A lot of that type of work also we think will be automated in some way. So the question is, what I want to write about is, how do we advise people in the space, maybe young people in the space or older people in the space, to get the skills they need to handle the coming automation of the softer side of quality, the management side of quality? Well,
I mean, it's funny. In some ways, that may be more of a challenge.
It's a big challenge,
than the hardware part.
The hardware part is fairly straightforward.
If you think of it, a lot of your managers. Here's a little ageism coming in here, but I'm 60, so hey, I can do this, right? I mean, but let's face it, there are a lot of older people who work in industry right now who aren't exactly, let's say, computer savvy. Mm-hmm. Let's say computer friendly. They actually destroy computers around them. Just their mere presence causes them to go down. For these people, I think sometimes learning to use, because when we talk automation, we're talking software, right?
Sure, yeah.
To throw a new system at them when they've been used to doing something using paper and so on and so forth. I know how to use my spreadsheets. I know how to go to a filing cabinet and get somebody up. I mostly know how to send email to people. Now all of a sudden you're throwing them into a system saying, okay, everything's online now. All that data entry you used to do, well, it's online. And all the communication, well, it's online. All your signing off, well, it's online. I think for some people, now I'm going to say, maybe for older people, shoot your arrows now.
Maybe not.
Maybe more of an issue.
I'm younger than you are, and you have a lot more ability in this space than I do. So it's not really necessarily just
maybe not, but I'm just making the assumption that most millennials and stuff, they
come through with it a little bit more,
came out of the womb with a cell phone in their hand, right? So, hey, am I born yet? Hey, let me tweet.
Selfie. Birthie.
Birthie. But I don't know. I think in some ways because software is in some ways much more intangible than learning a piece of hardware. A piece of hardware, I got a button, I push this button, I do these things in this sequence and it works. Software, that's the thing that drives my wife up the wall, is you can do in software in a lot of these applications, you can do things 10 different ways and everybody does it different. You ask this person, well, how do you do this? And they say, oh, we go here and pull down this drop menu, click here. And this person, oh, no, you do it this way. I think this is a challenge.
Well, you and I had this conversation. I don't want to go too much longer on this, but you and I had this conversation recently. From my perspective, I said, I need to get better at this. I need to get better at the language of being able to explain to a tech what I'm looking for. So it's like, your suggestion was, well, Google it. Google a lot of these things. A lot of the answers that you want, if you're patient enough to read through Google and understand it, can help you get some of the language skills down to begin to understand. At least the problem in many cases for me is just wrapping your mind around what it is I'm trying to find out, what I want to ask a tech.
Yeah, that's a good question. What questions do you even ask?
Yeah, and how do I understand
what's the lingo?
So that's a big problem too. But that was the good suggestion you had to me was, Google stuff. Just say, type in your question and see what the Google results give you, and you'll find some stuff out. I've learned to do a lot of home repair just through YouTube videos and things.
Well, I tell you, I hadn't thought about that because I normally think of automation in terms of hardware, but you're right. I mean, a lot of the automation that we're seeing right now, particularly in our space, document management, software related to your enterprise quality management system, EQMS. This is all going online. I mean,
more and more.
More and more. I mean, it's all automated.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff, Dirk. Well, thanks. You'll throw one at me next week if we have time, hopefully. All right. Well, that's our show for the week. But before we go, of course, we want to thank our sponsor. Mitutoyo Corporation is the world's largest provider of measurement and inspection solutions, offering the most complete selection of machines, sensors, systems, and services, with a line encompassing CMMs, vision, form, and finish measuring machines, as well as precision tools and instruments and metrology data management software. Mitutoyo's nationwide network of metrology centers and support operations provides application, calibration, service repair, and educational programs to ensure that their more than 6,000 metrology products will deliver measurement solutions for their customers. For more information, visit mitutoyo.com or click on the banner ad just below or just to the right of this video player page.
That's right. And that is the end of today's show. So thanks to Chip Bell for joining us from his car.
Kaleidoscope.
Outside a bank somewhere in Georgia.
That's right.
And his new book, Kaleidoscope, obviously, is out. So now be sure to check it out. We also want to thank Ismael Belmarez of DNV for joining us, along with Wendy Parr, owner of Parr Consulting. He'll be presenting the webinar IATF 16949 2016. Transition Experiences next Tuesday, March 21st at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. So if you're out here on the West Coast, grab your cup of coffee, sit down and watch that webinar. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week.
See you later. Bye.